Hello and welcome back to the SimTech podcast. Today we're going to be looking at something that I am very excited to share because I've kind of got my hands on it first, which is, it's always good to have. I don't want to take away the chips of the guys that I've brought, and I'll let them introduce what they're going to talk about. But first, Jake, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, Craig. Nice to see you again.
Welcome back. You've been a bit of a familiar guest.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Anytime. Obviously, my name's Jake Rahman. I am the CEO of Simulation Man, who operates as a SimCollective. We are a small healthcare simulation company that are also involved with other companies in development. We don't just sell stuff. We actually are here to try and improve the simulation community and also improve, what's available to simulation that's out there.
And who have you brought with you?
I brought Joe.
Joe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Joe McManus. So I work at MXR, where we develop software, both virtual reality, use of AI, immersive rooms, and various other software products specialized, aimed at the healthcare market area.
Well, welcome, Joe, for your first time. Do you do many podcasts?
No, actually, only done, I think, one previously. So, this is all new, all exciting stuff for us.
And what have we brought you here to do today, Jake? What are you going to show us?
So I'm really excited to show you this. So we, a few months ago, started discussions on creating a simulated electronic patient record system. This particular one we are calling Inpatient Sim. And we've been developing it. I wrote the spec, and the guys at MXR have brought it to life to make it into a relevant product for simulation centers up and down the country and around the world. So you're going to be the first person to see it properly, okay? Though there are some other people that we do have logins now. And we just want to go through some of the principles as to why we've developed it and what it's going to do, really.
Wow, exciting stuff. Okay, well, like I say, we don't want to talk too much about it. I think the only way that we can proceed is to actually get our hands on it. Okay, so should we lead on with the demo?
What we're going to do is take you through some various screens. So with Inpatient Sim, we are actually showing different screens for different users. So within Inpatient Sim, there's actually 4 ways of looking at it. So we've got the admin screen, which is where the administrator can create patients, they can add new users, and they can change things prior to running a scenario. And then we've got the faculty screen. The faculty can run and do everything that the admin can do, but there are just a few limitations on adding users and things like that. And then we have the user screen, which is where the students or the training clinicians might come in and use an EPR system within a simulation space. And we've got an extra screen, which is going to be the observer screen. So the observer screen can then be ported into a debrief room or an observation room, so people can follow what's going on. The key thing about this is that it's all on a web app. So it's a web app that's kept on the cloud. So as long as people have access to the internet, they're going to be able to use all 4 logins, including the administrator. But on top of that, if there are problems with connectivities, then we're asking people to come and talk with us about connectivity, and we might even have a solution for that later on as well. So what we're trying to do is make sure that nobody's limited because of IT, that everybody can have a login and be able to look at their particular area and make it as easy as possible. So
Does it matter what device is there, Jake? Can you use it on your phone? Can you use it on a phone or a tablet? Is it accessible for all devices?
Yeah, so it'll be fully optimized for tablets, for phones, anything else that you might use. What we didn't want to do, and we did ask prior to to talking to releasing the beta model. Okay, we asked people, do you want us to supply computers as well? Do you want us to supply that hardware? And most people came back and said no. We don't want you to supply the hardware. We don't want to supply the hardware. It's just difficult. You've got warranties involved and everything like that. Everybody's got a computer in their pocket, okay, and can get access to tablets, iPads, or whatever, and it's a web app. And because it's not locked to a specific app, like you might do if you had an Apple device, okay, it's a web app. You can access it from anything that can get to the internet.
Yeah, so like I say, I can put your mind at ease. I've logged on from a trust computer using free NHS Wi-Fi and our normal Wi-Fi, and it's let both of them on. It did have a little problem with Safari on the Mac. It preferred Chrome to allow that, but everything else has worked seamlessly from my end at the moment.
Yeah, and the reason why, just so you know, we've asked Craig to use Safari is because he's logged on as both the user and the observer on the same computer. And of course, if you've got two different logons on two different things, you have to do it in two different browsers. Otherwise, the computer knows that you're logged on to do two different things.
Yeah.
Either that, or you use an incognito mode, and it will work.
And Jake, just about the roles, all right, just to clarify that the admin that you are would be maybe a couple of days before someone who wants to prep the course might log in from the back office, not to do with Sim, couple of days, getting the patients ready. Yep. Then the participant would be in the Sim room. So this would be the simulation laptop as the participant. And then the faculty might be in the control room with the lead and the tech. And then the observer would be in the debrief room, where the observations from the debrief and the rest of the participant group that may be viewing it.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, bro.
Yeah, and also the way it's built is, and we'll talk about price later on. We might allude to it, but the way it's built is you can constructively build and scale up if you've got a number of simulation suites in one particular hospital or university, or you can just have one built for an observation room, a simulation room, and a control room. Simple as that. So, without further ado, let me just go through some of the features on the admin page, and hopefully it will explain quite a lot. So the first thing you see is the dashboard here. The dashboard tells us about the total number of patients that we have. It also tells us about any tests, investigations that have been requested that haven't been done yet or have been done. It tells you about the age distribution of the patients as well. We'll talk about how you generate the patients in a minute. And it talks about the usage. Of course, this is the beta version, so we haven't got an awful lot in there at the moment. And there are various logins that have been used with different numbers of patients on there. With regard to the users, you can see that we have some users on there already. We're giving away a few things there because there are going to be a few things that people that are going to be trying it out. But essentially, it's really easy to add a user. So if I am the administrator, I can add a user. So I can basically put somebody's name in there, last name, first name, give them a username as a login, and their email address, of course. We can add their photograph and create them as a user, okay? But the key thing is down here, we can set them as faculty, observer, or user. So what we hope is that institutions will just come up with free email addresses. That's all, okay? You can have a number of users in there, but I think from a simplified way, if an institution comes up with an email address for a user, they can use the same user to log in every time they use it in that particular sim room. Exactly the same with the faculty, so that can be down to whatever faculty it is, they can have their own user if they want to, or you can just have one for faculty within the university or hospital. And again, and exactly the same for the observer as well, just a generic email address so they can log in every single time.
Is there a limit to how many you can have?
No, there's not a limit to how many you can put on there, but there's a limit to how many you can have be assigned at the moment. But we're working on that because some of the feedback that we've had, so we've had feedback from people even before we put it out there. And the reason why we've got feedback is because, or we've got requests, is because we put out a questionnaire to everybody that has shown an interest. And the questionnaire has come back about, larger institutions that want to run simulation wards so that you can have multiple users. So we're working on that, aren't we, Joe?
Yeah, we are indeed, yeah. I mean, it's still substantial the number of users you can put in there now.
Yeah. So we haven't got to the limit yet, and we just want to see what the demand is for the having lots of users. The question that I ask is, if you've got lots of users, students, or whatever, and give them their own logins, what are they going to get out of it for having a lifetime login of this system? Are you going to send them anything, pre-information about patients, notes, things like that? Really, is it going to be used, or is it just going to be something that's going to be, demanded but not used? And you'll hear me say this over and over again, Craig. Okay, we want to give a system that works, a system that does what it says on the tin. All the bells and whistles that simulation software in a generic sense has put out there, and simulation products in a generic sense, we know that most of them don't get used. And so we want to focus on what people will use first, and then we go back and look at what people might require later on as simulation grows. Okay, so once you've added a user, okay, we can go into our users. Okay, I can go into Craig over here, and we can assign you some patients. Okay, so in this particular for this particular demonstration, I'm going to assign you Emily. Okay. Emily is the lady with suspected preeclampsia, as a bit of a spoiler. But essentially now, on your user side, you should get a notification, or you should be able to go into Emily.
Yeah, I can now see Emily on my participant view. And let me look at my observation view. Yes, and I can now see her on the observation view as well, which is good.
Brilliant. Wonderful. It's all working. So that's been assigned to you, but we'll come to that a bit later. I'm just going to go over to the patient tab now. And as you can see, we've got some patients there that we've already added. Okay. One of the key things for this is there's no limitation for the amount of patients you can add. Okay, there's no limitation for the amount of patients you can have. Okay, so the key thing is that the more patients we have, yes, of course, it takes up cloud storage. We recognize that. Okay, but we're footing the bill for the cloud storage, just as long as people buy into it. Okay, and what we hope will happen is that people will use patients. And multiple patients, and they will make their own, derive their own. We're expecting that, but once patients have been used and they work and they don't work, they get the ability to archive them or to delete them. Okay. Now, in a year or two's time, if we've got 500,000 patients on the database, we might have to have a conversation with people and talk about people about cleaning up their database. But at the moment, there's going to be no limitation, so you can do what you want. With creation of patients. Now, we can create a patient if we want to. We can even generate with AI to get us started. And that really is the quickest way to get us started on a patient, by generating with AI. This takes a couple of seconds, but it's really quite easy. All we have to do, can you see the pop-up there in front? Wonderful. So we can then look at the gender of the patient, okay? And of course, we really have incorporated everything on here from a gender point of view. So we're going to call this a male patient. We're going to have it for either public or private use. Can you see that drop down? So essentially, if we have it for public use, this is where it becomes important as a community. This means that this patient is going to be available to everybody that's got inpatient SIM. Yeah. So basically, you created a patient and you shared it amongst other people, and they can use it.
Is it possible then to make little tweaks without changing the original template? Because some patients you might think, actually, that's 80% right, that asthma patient, but there's a few things I'd like to change, but I don't want to change the original template. Is it possible to maybe just copy it, and then change the copy? Does that make sense?
Joe?
Yeah, indeed. That's easy enough that's simple enough to do.
Yeah. So essentially, yes, we're going to be able to keep original patients. You're going to be able to create your own patients. You're going to be able to tweak, add things, notes. We'll go into that in a second as well, prior to the scenario starting. And you could also be able to have time observations. So if you want, 3 hours worth of observations before, the faculty can add that. Okay. So if we're looking at a deteriorating patient and we want to show a trend before the scenario starts, that could be added beforehand. Okay. So we're set it in a critical care scene, okay? And the actual room itself is going to be intensive care. The speciality will be, for argument's sake, cardiovascular, and the condition will be acute heart failure. And we're going to generate one AI patient there, but actually the system allows to generate up to 5 AI patients at a time. Okay, so a good time to ask questions now, because it takes a little bit of a while for that to generate, Craig.
Yeah. Firstly, thanks. I mean, it looks fantastic. I like the blue. Always makes it feel clinical. One of my observations here is that the text is quite small, and I'm wondering, most people would probably have this as a, if you imagine 4 cameras in the debrief room, one of these camera feeds might be given to EPR. So you can have 2 cameras, the observations, and an EPR screen. I'm wondering if the text is quite small for to be able to see it from the back of the room. I'm wondering, is there any way of making the text a little bit larger?
Yeah, I see no reason we can't do that, Craig. Yeah. That's,
I mean, it looks nice with small text, but we've gone through this process ourselves. We made an Excel spreadsheet that pretty much does this kind of stuff, but then we realised that nobody can read it in the sim room because the text looks so small. Yeah, but it does it feels like a real EPR just looking at it, the way that it's laid out and set up. And one of the things that I know we spoke about there, Jake, is the simplicity of its design. Because what everyone that worries about is when they go into simulation, the worst thing that you can do is keep them behind a laptop for 20 minutes while they try to figure out, where patient records are, how do they find it on this? Because that's what real EPR, isn't it? It's so complex in its nature. If you've ever looked at a real EPR records, it's horrific, isn't it? To put most clinicians don't have any kind of training on it, and they're definitely going to have no training on this inpatient EPR, because the first time they see it, it's going to be in the sim room. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I did a little bit of research on this as well with regard to real EPRs, and actually real EPR systems, just like a lot of simulation software and other software out there, just like mobile phones, it's only used 30% to its capabilities. So the functionality, only 30% of it was used in real hospitals, real EPR systems, but they don't use them to even close to what they can get out of them. And I actually think, because of the pressures with the NHS and the pressures in the hospital, well, 30% might not sound a lot, but if it does what it needs, to be done, okay, if it's doing what it has to, what's wrong with 30%? And that's, I think that's the key thing. So what it tells us is that the other 70% is not getting used. Why? It's too complicated, haven't got enough time, et cetera, et cetera. And that's real world. Yeah.
I mean, we see it with a lot of simulation kit these days, don't we? With high fidelity mannequins, people use it as essentially a shell. They don't use any of its, its capabilities mostly. Sometimes, as we spoke before, Jake, sometimes people feel like they need to sell you this stuff that you don't actually need.
Yep.
It's almost a little bit of a gimmick that they put this high fidelity tag on this equipment just to sell you there. That being said, there is a need to. They're trying to capture a larger audience out there. There's got to be a little bit of something in it for everybody. But as you said, 80% is really easy to do. It's the last 20% sometimes where it's really difficult to achieve, and that's where the money's made. But 80% still, it's still a lot, isn't it? Really, for what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with Inpatient Sim, I think we're nearly there. Like I said earlier on, bells and whistles and things like that we've got in our mind. We've got the feedback already, or the pre-brief, or the questionnaire that we put out there. We know what we might be doing in the future. We know the road that we might go down, but it's really, really important. Really important. And I said I'll allude to this later on. The price that we're going to put it out for, okay, requires people to buy into it early so we can continue to do that. We're not going to flood the street with salespeople to say, come and buy this amazing thing. We expect the simulation community to be inquisitive on this, and that's why we've put it at the price that we put it at, really. Okay.
We might not have mentioned the price at the moment, Jake. Would you like to recap on and how much you reckon this is going out at?
Yeah. So essentially, the price is going to be for 5 years, £3,000 for a simulation centre, and the reason why we've done it like that is because we know what the cost is. It's not a real EPR system, Craig. It's not. We're not going to have millions of patients on there. We don't have to deal with protection of patient data. These are really costly things with real EPR systems that they need to think about. If everything falls off the back of a truck tomorrow with regard to all the data and everything, though we're going to protect it, and that's not going to happen, we're not going to end up in court. So we this is a simulated system. Every patient on here, all the information that's put into there, and all the files that are put into there with regard to tests and diagnostic imaging and stuff like that, we expect you to anonymize them first of all if you are taking real ones out. So that will, and there will be disclaimers on there about that, and that's what a lot of the cost comes in this real sort of patient software that's out there. We don't bear those costs. Okay.
Well, it looks like our patients are generated there. Is that? Can I see John Miller at the bottom?
Just to come back to an earlier point that Jake was saying, what we've done here is create the product to keep it simple, so it's an 80-20 product. What we're also allowing then is a user forum whereby if people really want additional bells and whistles, they can dialogue with us. We can then prioritize, and that'll come out in the following version.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a community project here that we've got going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want everybody involved to come up with a project for ourselves, really. I think it's a great idea, and it's really refreshing to hear that people are taking on feedback from users to help create a product that is people are they want it and they need it, don't they? Because people are stepping away from paper, from all this, and we have been doing it for years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we've got John Miller, patient number one.
Yeah. One thing that we are going to be working on, because it's come up to me a couple of times as an improvement, is the names are a bit stale. I hope in the future that it will pick from a bigger pool of interesting names. But apart from that, so we've created John Miller. Okay, John Miller is a patient, of course, with cardiac problems. So every time we generate, we get lots of information about this patient. So we get the observations at the time, the assessment, the treatment algorithm. We get the results about the patients and recovery results and things like that. This is all for the faculty. So actually what a user will see in the future will be a redacted amount of this as well. So we're not going to give all the information to the user, of course, or the student, okay? But this gives us a full history of that patient and where they are at the time, okay? So I'm going to save that patient, and then we're going to have a look at John Miller in a little bit more detail, okay? And we can see that John Miller is on here now, and he's a public patient, and we can view him by clicking on him here. And once you go into the view, you'll get more information about that patient, okay? So we've even got a social economic history of this patient, which I think is quite important as well. So he's a retired engineer with a moderate income, smoker for 30 years, quit 5 years ago. Little things like that sort of add to the scene if you want, but we're going to get all of this information.
As with all AI, it needs to be read in full, doesn't it, first before, because it is susceptible to making little mistakes here and there, because it's just filling up gaps, isn't it? And I don't know if a 30-year smoker would have a big impact as a whole. As you can imagine, it would probably swing the scenario one way or the other, wouldn't it? It's just kind of shoehorned it in there.
Yeah, exactly. What you're able to do prior to using this patient is you could add some notes yourself, okay? So we can add some notes on here, and then those notes will remain with that patient. So if we do want to change things as we go, change the situation, we can add the notes in there, okay? We've got observation charts and an observation history on here, okay? So we can add a new observation chart if we want to, and for instance, we can put today's date on there, today's time, etc., etc. So that's all in there. We can put a respiratory rate of 12, O2 sats 98 is okay. This guy on air, blood pressure 120/80, pulse at 78, conscious alert. Temperature in Celsius, and we can give them a news of 4. Okay, so we can save that now, and we've built up one timestamp there. Okay, so if I look at the chart view, we've only got one timestamp on there, but we can add more. So we could add it every 15 minutes, every 10 minutes, however the observations are to be taken, and then that will appear in the patient's notes prior to the start of the scenario. So if you want to build up a in-hospital history, somebody that's a deteriorating patient that's got observations for 4 or 5 hours or so, you can build that in there as well, so you can see a deterioration in the chart.
Jake, just a question on timestamping. How do you timestamp something from yesterday, or because in a week's time that is no longer going to be the 8th, that's going to be a week ago. So what if you wanted them to be on medication yesterday or 3 days ago, and that still be relevant in 3 months' time? Does that make sense? I don't know if I worded that right.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think that's something we can do something about.
Yeah, because we've realised that you don't want to update the medical records every day that something's changed, but you do want to know that they were on medication yesterday. But if you, like you say, you save that and you come back to it in 3 months' time, the medication would be 3 months and 1 day ago, which it sometimes throws the scenario off. I don't know if you've thought about that problem or not.
No, it's a really good question. But that's something that we can look at sorting out before the full version comes out. That to me, that is 3 buttons on the screen that says historical patient history, or 1 day ago, or 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, or something like that. So we can choose it off the screen. So when do you want this date time stamped on? So yeah, that's possible.
That's easy to do.
Yeah.
Real.
Yeah. Have you written that down, Joe?
I have indeed.
Yeah,
we'll just
so,
reference from a today's date and then roll it backwards.
Yeah. So we could do it from today's date and go 24 hours back, or 48 hours back, or whatever, or 72 hours back. And I think that will be a really good sort of extra feature on there. Yeah. This is why we're talking to you, Craig. Thanks.
Well, the problems that we've already had, because like you say, I keep saying it, we've created our own, and these are the problems that we had. And we just got around it by saying yesterday. Obviously, you guys will be able to code it a little bit better than us just writing yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. So you can request investigations on here, so we can add investigations as we go if we want to, but we'll see that in the user view as you request things as a user, okay? And we can have investigation reports where we can create our own ones if we want to. So essentially, once you're in the scenario, you have the reports in there, you're going to be able to request a report as a user, and those reports will then always be with that patient going forward, okay? All right? And of course, they can be deleted as well, so you can start all over again. But what you might want to do is you might want to have a long-term inpatient in there that you want to keep coming back to. And that might be quite relevant to have lots and lots of reports built up. And of course, you can add prescriptions if you want to as well. So remember, this is a brand new created patient. We haven't added any prescriptions yet, okay? So again, we can then add new parameters in there. We can add new tests. We can add new things that we might be looking at. For me, from my point of view, having worked with thromboelastography years ago, been obsessed with it for a while, the one thing that's missing on here from a clotting point of view is thromboelastography, and I'll probably add that at some point because it keeps me awake at night thinking about it. So any other tests that you might want to do as a clinician or as a faculty, you'll be able to add them in retrospectively as well. So we're going to build up a full portfolio of tests as well, types of tests, diagnostic tests, radiography tests, whatever it is, okay? And those will forever remain in the system. So hopefully we'll have tests to cover everything at some point, but it's pretty comprehensive in there, what we got now, because we've got all these categories that are in there at the moment, okay? And if we're adding a new test, we add them from these categories, okay? So simply, if I click down on here and I added a blood test, we can see these are the available, sorry, the wrong one. If I added a blood test in here, we've got it both, blood test 1, okay? Yeah, we've got, that's one I added blood test 1 earlier on. We've got all these available blood tests in there already, okay, that you can request as a user. If we added a radiography test, we've got all these tests that are in there at the moment you can request as a user, okay? But on the right side of the screen, it's about adding more as faculty, if there's something in there that's missing, okay? And of course, this is where all your reports are, okay? We haven't done many reports on here so far, but we've ordered echoes and things like that. And essentially, they are all in there. Now, when you request a test, there are 2 ways of it going over, and we'll see that in a second. We could either, as faculty, we could add all the information in there for that test, but if it's a radiography test or an X-ray, we could simply put the X-ray in there and send it over. Or we could do a full analysis of it and then send it over. But it's entirely up to the faculty at the time. And that's about it for the admin page.
I think it's doesn't look too scary for me. I think I could probably muddle my way through that without too much help, actually, Jake. It seems pretty simple. Very, like I say, simple on its approach. Very obvious headings that you click on and you just literally fill your way through. I really love the AI help as well, because, like I said, most of the patients might be filler, especially if you want to fill up a couple of, make it look busier than it actually is, rather than going out and filling every single one in manually. And even if you just want to put a patient in and then you'd prefer to change a few things rather than do the whole thing, I think that's also a really great addition as well. Where does it draw its information from? Is it just another large language model somewhere?
I don't know much about the language model. I think Joe's the one for that, really.
I'd have to ask actually the design team where it's pulling it from, but I don't know off the top of my head, but I can figure that one out for you.
Okay, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes from putting AI into it. Comes from a conversation that I had with Dill. Dill's the CEO of MXR a while back, where I sat with him on a Teams meeting once, and we went through a couple of AI engines, and we just derived scenarios. I said, "Oh, what happens if I put this in there? What happens if I do that? What happens?" And you're right; it's 90% right. I did an experiment where I was creating scenarios, and I was asking questions. Well, this scenario takes place in an anaesthetic room in a UK NHS hospital, okay, and that not related to an EPR system, but it came up with a scenario, and it assumed all the equipment that should be in a UK anaesthetic room with all the right protocols within there, and I made sure that was in there, and it was about 99% correct.
It's all good for like 30 seconds work, isn't it?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And we know with AI, it was interesting because when I was at ASPE a couple of years ago, and there was a big, there was an onstage thing with AI, and they asked me to sit up there as an expert, panel member, and what people need to realize with AI is everybody's frightened of it, but the answer to AI is AI. That's what it is. That's that's going to make it improve. That's what's going to change it and up the game for it. And we know that it can derive all sorts of things for us. But the question is what are we asking it, and how are we asking it? That's where the problems start. If we don't ask it a proper question, it's not going to give us a proper answer.
Yeah, I think I found myself doing it the other day. I was putting in a prompt, and I was like, why am I trying to figure out the prompt? I'll ask AI to generate me the prompt. And then before you know it, they're teaching themselves, and robots are taking over the world.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
Are we do other things?
Are we happy to move on from the administrator side of Inpatient Sim then? Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So now we're actually in the faculty screen, and I'm going to start a scenario or a patient, and hopefully Craig, who is signed in as a user, is going to be able to engage in a scenario. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've already assigned Craig as some patients within the users, and now I'm just going to go straight to the patient, and we're going to pick on Emily here. So Emily Thompson is the patient. That's our brief that we get as faculty, okay? And I'm going to start a session. And you see, when we start a session, we can name it session 1, okay? Session 1. And what we can do is we can determine the length of that session. You can stop a session anytime you want as admin or faculty, or you can have an unlimited session that can run forever if you want to. We need somebody to stop it at some point, but you can run an unlimited one. For the purposes
why is there a time there, Jake? Sorry, I mean, Why do you feel like you need to give it 15 minutes? And what happens at the end of the 15 minutes?
Well, it's just so you've got a timer running on your screen, really.
Okay, so you can see it.
So from a point of view of, I know that within simulation software, whether you're using SimRAM 3G or blah 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 or whatever, you're going to have a timer on there anyway. It's an extra timer. So if your key marker is 15, and you know that you've got a compressed session that you've got to do and get lots of people through, it gives you a time marker on there. And the session will end on 15 minutes, or you can have an unlimited one. So that is really down to you guys, really, to determine how long the sessions are going to be and manage your time. Okay, but it can be unlimited.
Like I say, I've never. Again, I'm just being very selfish. I can't ever think of a reason why I would limit myself a time. The worst case scenario is something happens and they go to 16 minutes and it just all cuts off. So I feel like I'd always be pressing unlimited. But there might be like I say, I'm just thinking for myself, really. I'm sure someone will probably want to use a time somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the other thing in there is, if you're doing OSCEs or something like that, and you want to use it for OSCEs,
something more official.
And remember, what we're trying to build it for is multiple patients running at the same time and wards and things like that. So that's why we kind of put that in there. But I agree. Absolutely. So I'm going to save this and start the session, okay? And the session's active and running now. So hopefully you're going to be able to go into Emily's details from your end.
I'm already getting nervous because I see the time ticking down.
I'm going to stop sharing.
All right, so let me share my screen then. Let's see how we're going to go on. All right, so one of the things I did notice, Joe, is that maybe the labeling of the screens could be a little bit better. So because they all look very samey. So because we've got multiple screens up, I can't really tell the difference between the observer screen and the patient and the admin. They all look a little bit samey.
Yes, okay. Mm-hmm.
And the only way at the moment I can tell is by looking at like the URL.
By the tag.
Yeah. So
that's really easy to change. We'll fix it. Yeah, you pick a color, Craig. We'll put it whichever.
We're going to let Craig pick a color. What color for a user, color for observer, and color for
too
faculty.
Much pressure. And I'm very aware that my time's ticking down. So, all right. So let's start from the beginning now. So I've logged on and I've logged on, and it's automatically assigned me Emily. So I didn't get a choice to pick any type of patients. This was the patient that was assigned to me. And even if I go back to dashboard, it's telling me that my patient is Emily, and I can see that the clock is now ticking down for 13 minutes.
Just to add in, and I'm really excited about this because the guys in the background have obviously been working on this. They've taken out the stuff that we wanted redacted, so that's already been done. So you can see it's a more compressed view of this patient, and they're not getting the full information.
All right, so we're in the boxes. We can see that we've got the generic history, information even, not really history, but we've got a few little bits and pieces about clinical information, the social and medical background, and the equipment and tests. And down the side, we've got all the tabs that we would normally have, and we can go to patient notes. At the moment, we can see that there is an ECG and that they're on magnesium and no other notes at the moment. We've got the option to add notes, so we can go in there and write some notes. We'll just save a note. We've got to put a title. And we can save that. Must be at least 10 characters, being very strict. All right, so, and we can see that our note is in there that we've saved, which is brilliant.
I've got a notification at my end that note has been added, by the way.
Okay, so is there an audio, or does it ping or anything like that?
No, it doesn't ping yet, actually, but again, we can make it ping if you want it to ping.
And then the next one down is the observations. Now, is this the stuff that AI did then? Is this
No, this is actually stuff that I added.
So you've done all this because it does say that you've actually added it in. one of the things that we might have to figure out is that we would probably like that to be a doctor or the consultant or something rather than the administrator, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we can do that.
And then we've got the date and time, all the stuff on there that we'd be happy with. News, temperature, consciousness, and then request investigations. All right, so down here we've got all kinds of investigations, down from radiology to micro to blood tests, testings, and an ECG. All right, so we are going to request an ECG, and we save selected. It says request sent successfully. Jake, did you receive my request?
I did. Yeah, I received your request, and I'm going to add an ECG. Upload new. Yeah. So QoS duration. Okay, wonderful. And just give me a moment because I'm just got 1,000 windows open my end.
I noticed that you've put AKG here as well. I assume that we're accompanying our brothers from overseas.
Yeah, and actually that was a request that I did just this weekend. I've been sending out things to the developers over the weekend. Yeah. I've been on their back quite a lot. So I've sent you an ECG.
Yeah, so I have a pop-up on the screen that says new investigation received. So do I just go to investigation reports?
Yep.
Echocardiogram, and I have a box for action. So click on action. It gives me the observations.
Yeah. I haven't filled in all the notes. I've just put in a simple PDF or file in there at the moment, so you can bring that up.
Yeah, so the first thing that I noticed is the quality of the ECG is quite low. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how much detail they would need, but because you've probably uploaded it as a PDF, is there a minimum or a maximum quality that we can upload? Could it take 4K or anything?
That's just my error because this is a number of ones that I've downloaded off of the internet. So I haven't done any QC. I haven't done any QC on them yet, I'm afraid.
No, you've copied and copied and copied it until it's become this. Okay, but the process works. It's come through, and it was very slick actually. The only thing that I probably would have liked was maybe an audible ping or something, because the doctor at that point might have been seeing the patient or something, and they wouldn't have known that the ECG had come back.
Yeah. Easy to do.
Okay, so investigation.
Yeah, we'll switch that on.
Yep. And then add a prescription. So let's have a look at what it's like for medication. Medication name. Let's put in some paracetamol. So I noticed that it doesn't kind of auto predict what I'm trying to type. Is it just all free text?
It's all free text at the moment, but once you've typed it in once, it's going to remember it for the next time. So it's going to become a drop down like it just does normally does under your login.
Yeah, okay. I mean, what would be cool is if it kind of predicted what I wanted and then would help me with the doses. So it's kind of pulling it from maybe a BNF or it pulls it from somewhere. So it gives me options. The good point of this is that the doctor or the nurses would have to know exactly the right amount of doses and the routes and everything, and it's not giving them a clue. So it would force them to check their guidelines. All right, so what happens if I tried to add the prescription? Yeah, it's going to want me to give all that, which, I'm not going to embarrass myself and try to figure that part out. But yeah, I think it is super simple, really easy to use, and it does exactly what I would hope for actually. And I didn't use all my time, which is a bonus. All right, so I'm going to come back off that. Stop sharing. What I did then notice is, should my observer screen changed as I was going along in that, Jake?
It will do if you're in the patient. Yeah, so
okay.
you'll be able to go things there. So actually, the observers will be able to click through the patient to see what things have been added through there as well. So yeah, I mean, there's two ways that we thought about doing the observer screen, and that was one, just doing a complete simple follow of the mouse of the of the user, or just for the observers to be able to go in there to see things that have changed within there. And we chose the latter one simply because, from a connectivity point of view, it becomes easier in a sense that that means that if you've got a Wi-Fi system, you can just simply log in and there's somebody else. Now, there is other ways of doing it. So we can do an observer screen. So if everybody's got amazing connectivity, we could just simply do a screen share, and it will track that anyway. So you might not even log in as an observer. So this was something specifically when we reached out to people that they asked for. They said, yeah, we want an observer screen so they can follow that patient all the way through and look at things in and out.
Yeah, I've got to say, I think that sounds brilliant to me. One of the things that we once thought about was maybe having like tablets or something on the desks so people could peruse the history and stuff in their own time while watching the simulation. But we found that actually that could be quite distracting. What we want them to do is we want them to watch the simulation. We don't want them to get lost in people's notes and documentation where they're completely distracted. We wanted them to be, immersed in what was happening, and I find it more organic if they're watching what they're seeing on the screen, what the doctor's looking at. Because if the doctor's looking at, inpatient EPR, and we can follow even watching what they're clicking on and their mouse and watching the journey as it goes on. I think it's just more organic to me. I don't know what you think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a case for both, to be honest. I know what it'd be like sitting in an observation room, because when you're sitting in an observation room and you're watching a scenario, you think they've missed that, and if you've got the ability to sort of peruse those patient notes as a team within the observation room, you can confirm it. You can say, yeah, right. Okay, there's something they missed there. And this is where everybody's learning all the time, because they might spot things that the actual candidate is not spotting. And that is a really good sort of way to practice it, by being able to peruse those notes.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they're watching in the first place, isn't it?
Yeah.
So to come back in and then they can discuss, the incidents that happened. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. All right, so anything else before we move on to some questions, guys, before that you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think just to be clear to everybody, the release that we're going to put out there at the moment, there are quite a lot of people that we're going to release it to at the moment. It is the beta version, and just like you've given us some suggestions there, and we've worked on some changes over the weekend, I guarantee that a lot of those suggestions that you've made will be done within the next few days, and it will,
Yeah, absolutely. All of those modifications that Craig suggested are really, 5-minute jobs.
Yeah, well, I mean, even just off the back of this podcast, you're going to be getting people with ideas and questions. I can tell, because I'm not a leading expert on simulation EPR models, but I'm sure people have been out there using this stuff for a couple of years now, and they'll be screaming out at me going, I can't believe you didn't question them on this. All right. Okay, so let's relay around some questions then, Jake. How much is this? You kind of said already, but is there any other payment methods?
So if people want to buy into a yearly a subscription, they can buy it for £1,000 a year. Of course, there will be different rates of dollars and things like that. But we're offering it at £1,000 per year, or £3,000 for 5 years. That is an offer that might continue if enough people buy into it. Now, it's really, really important to stress this, okay? And I do find this a little bit frustrating from an industry point of view, okay? We're trying to promote simulation techs and the simulation users to be more inquisitive and more curious, and therefore come to us in their droves. And if they do come to us in their droves, we'll be able to keep that price down.
One point there, Jake, that we're sufficiently confident in this product that people will get a 30-day free trial ahead of buying into any license. So, the people have the opportunity to build confidence in it before they then make the leap into buying a license.
When is all this available?
Kind of now, really. The only thing that I'm waiting for at the moment, and it's a conversation we're going to have, is to be ported over to the new web address. Okay. Yeah, which will be www. Gone.
Yeah, I was going to say it'll be by the end of this week because, porting across is simple, and taking on board those few changes that you suggested, Craig, we'll implement those.
Yeah, and we've got to kind of stress that this is better. It is kind of early access, so we are taking on people's comments. People might think it's quite a simple design. It's kind of intentional, isn't it, Jake, that you've kept it this way?
It is, and I mean, this is one of those things that I have from a personal point of view when it comes to software. It's great working with MXR. Okay, I've been around software all my life, and that's because my brother is a software engineer, and and he's been writing software for 30, 40 years now almost. And things like this, though they are complex for people that don't know, for the people that do know, they can make it quite simply. They can make changes, etc., etc., etc. And I want to debunk the costs that are associated when putting software out there for simulation overall in all sectors of simulation. I want to debunk some of it, and so we've set this a price that is right for all people to be able to get access, whether you've got a tiny simulation center in a pediatric unit in a hospital, or whether you've got a university with multiple simulation rooms that you want to be able to use. And we're trying to make sure that everybody is included in this.
Yeah, I mean, it looks and feels brilliant. How do people give you feedback if they find something that they would like to change or edit? Is there something on the software itself? Is there a little feedback app, or is it just purely emailing you?
I'll let Joe answer that.
Yeah, sure. So it's feedback it will be a feedback thing on the site, so that you can actually then click on that and say, it would be great if we can do this, or can you tell me how to do such and such? So we'll be able to engage with anybody who's got a suggestion or a clarification and so forth on it. So it'll be on that website.
And if people want to get their hands on a trial, what's the best way of doing it?
So they can come to us. They can contact us directly via email. Go to hellohester@simulationcollective.com, which is the email. There will be, as soon as we're ported it over to the new web address, there will be a link that will appear on our website, and people can click on that link, or they can come to me or us on LinkedIn, send us some messages on LinkedIn, however they want to. We will then arrange, if they give us their details of their institution, an institution email, very important, okay, and their contact details. We will then arrange a free trial, and you will get a notification for a login for a free trial where you can set up users and observers until your heart's content, and create patients for the next 30 days or so. But hopefully what we want to do to continue this momentum that we have in updating this as quickly as possible, we really do want early adopters that will buy in. We are a business, buy into to the subscription model as quickly as possible. And within that, Joe's already said about the forum in there. At that point, you're going to get your say about how this is going to be improved.
Are we going to see you at any conferences this year?
Yes, we're going to be at ASPE. Okay, so we're going to be at ASPE MXR are going to be there. It's going to be fantastic. We're not only going to have this, okay? We've got Inpatient Sim, which is going to be at ASPE. We've got an immersive room solution that I've been working on with Dill and Joe and the team for some months now to ensure that immersive rooms and content is going to be almost endless, because that's been the problem with immersive rooms, having enough content, okay? And it's going to be curriculum relevant. And with the team at Greenwich University, so Sharon Wilden, who's the president of ASPE, we're also going to launch a paramedic driving simulator. And on top of that, we've got our colleagues from Plan 3D coming over from Chile, Medic Effects, Lapro. We're going to show Candlelight as the training version. We've got In and Of to Learn, which have got some new stuff coming out. We've got something for TiVo that we're going to show for In and Of to Learn. And of course, the thing that I was involved in a couple of years ago that we're still selling, the bariatric nursing mannequin R42. And our friend, Raul Rodriguez from Emerald is going to be there with the Emerald overlays and doing a moulage session for anybody that wants to do moulage. And just one thing, okay, in the corner, just up from us, we're going to have somebody else there who's going to be from a company called Space Tag. And we've got an asset tracking solution for universities and hospitals that we're going to launch into simulation first. We've got loads coming, Craig. We've got loads coming.
Well, you're making me drool over here. I mean, asset tracking is quite a hot topic at the moment. I know everybody is wanting to get their hands on something. It's always a question that's going on in the community. Anyone know what does this? How do I do this? Anyone know any of apps? But it's good to listen, and people can tell that you're listening. I assume that you've got your ears all over social media and that kind of stuff, because
I'm never on social media.
No, somebody's listening. I can tell.
So just on the asset track thing, the asset track solution that we've got is something that we were working on with actually the MOD recently, with the J-Hub people in the MOD, and it's something that we've decided that we're going to bring to market for simulation and the healthcare. So these things have been tested, these things have been looked at properly.
Well, guys, I think that's us. If you've got anything else to add, I'd like to thank you for coming on today, taking time out of your very busy schedules to come and show us what I can only assume is going to be very exciting within the simulation community. And I know as people are going to pick it up and run with it, and hopefully, I'm going to, after this, I'm going to take it to my managers and say, look, how about this? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And then I can probably do a bit more of a deep dive into it and really open it up and see what's going on with it. All right, guys.
Thank you.
Last thing, if you don't want to add anything, I'll let you say goodbye to everybody.
Thanks, Craig. Great to see you again.
Let's see you at ASPE.
Excellent. Thanks, Craig, for the opportunity and some good input there.
Brilliant. Well, like you said, Joe, look forward to working with you.